Romans 8:28 tells us this: all things God works for those who have been called to his purpose. You do realize if you're sitting here today that God has a plan for your life. If you've met him or not, if you've been baptized or not, if you've walked away from him for a few years and you're on your way back, or you just wandered in today because you heard there was coffee and donuts. God has a plan, and he had a plan for you to be here today, and he has a plan and a purpose for your life. So how do we tap that purpose? How do we figure out what our God ask is? The first one is to trust. Trust that he has a plan and a purpose for each of our lives, and that only fear is holding us back from really launching into that adventure. The second one is to listen. There's that still small voice inside of you, knocking on your heart. And after you've listened and you're not quite sure, sometimes it's just better to launch. It's just better to leap. Launch into a life that he's asked you to, invited you to. He's equipped you. You realize that he equipped you from birth with all the stories, all the situations you've gone through. Whatever your God ask is, God has been preparing you since you came out of the womb. You guys sponsor a missionary. His name is Solomon. Solomon is my best friend in the world. Well, Solomon came to me a few years ago and he said, Tom, there's unreached people in the country of Kenya. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, there's 18 tribes that have never heard the gospel. I was like, wow. Okay, why are you telling me? He's like, we need to change that. I was like, okay, great. So Solomon now takes a group of students, university students who are on their spring break, long break, and they go to a place called Phuket. So these students, the first time they went, they were gathered around a fire, and this pastor told a story, and I think it's why we keep sending students back, because of this one story. The pastor said he had gathered a bunch of the herdsmen together under a tree, and he began sharing the gospel with them. And he got to the end, and one of the elder men of the herdsmen said, so how old is this story? And the pastor responded, it's centuries old, many, many generations old. And he said the elder herdsman sat there for a while, kind of thinking. And then he said, if you have known as long as you have known, then why are you just now coming with this news to us? Well, Solomon said to me when he told me that story the first time, he said, Tom, people are more eager to hear than we are ready to share. Sometimes it's just time for us to launch. Trust, listen, launch. And the last one is laugh. Remember this, that God's going to put you in situations when you take steps. God doesn't promise that it's not going to be hard. And Satan is still at work in this world. And when we answer our God ask, sometimes Satan wants to make sure that we really know what we're doing. And the best thing to do is just to laugh about it. So today, as I pray with you and pray for you, I pray that as you look at the God ask, that you would trust, and you would listen, and then you would launch, and then you would laugh. My prayer for you is this in 1 Corinthians 2:9, that as you answer your God ask, and as crazy and as scary as it might seem to you, and as insane as it might be to the human minds that process what you're telling them God's calling you to, remember this, that no eye has seen and no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him and answer the God ask.